It is episode number 10 of the Gashouse Gang. Alongside of Bernie Miklasz, I'm Matt Pauley. Welcome in. We are so glad to be able to talk sports with you. We do this every weekday live at 12 noon on the various Camo X social media channels. Hopefully you are subscribed to us on YouTube or subscribe to us on the podcast. And then also hello to everybody listening to us on Camo X, airing during the 8 o'clock hour each weekday night. Bernie, it is always good to see you. How are you?
Man, I'm doing good, man. We got a lot to talk about today, and it's always wonderful to work with you. So let's get to it, man. Let's get at it.
Absolutely. Gashouse Game being brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Let's start with a little Cardinals baseball, as we always do. It was a good night last night for Ryan Helsley, as in the Major League Baseball postseason honors show. Picks up National League Reliever of the Year, is on the All-MLB team. It's kind of a bummer because that might be his final official act as a member of the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this turns out. I mean, I think it makes all the sense in the world to trade Ryan Helsley. And I know that like Derek Gould, our good friend at the Post-Dispatch STL today, he has reported or mentioned several times that the Cardinals, they're inclined to keep him unless they really get blown away by an offer. Now, part of that could be public posturing by John Mozeliak, which is actually a smart thing to do. You're letting teams know we're not giving them away. You're not going to get them cheap. So it sort of sets the stakes of what it might cost to get him. But I don't know how you feel about this. And he's an excellent reliever, to say the least. I mean, if you just take the last 3 seasons, and there have been some injuries mixed in there, but number 2 in wins above replacement among relievers, number 3 in ERA, number 8 in strikeout rate, number 5 in win probability added. I mean, he's about as good as it gets, along with Clase and Williams. So I would think there would be a market for him. I would be surprised if there's not a market for him. And I think the Cardinals should make a move if they get an offer that they like, because unless they really think they're going to contend in 2025, or unless they are seriously planning to try to sign him to a big contract before he goes to free agency, I would just say politely, well, what would be the point of not trading him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Now, at the end of the season, I said I hope they wouldn't trade him because I thought they were going to go into a year where they were going to plan to contend again.
Sure.
When that changed, I think everything else changed. I do wonder if his trade value is at all impacted by the fact that it's not going to be a buyer's market, but it's a buyer's market in the sense that Devin Williams is going to be available too. So there's 2 high-end closers that are going to be available for a team to go trade for. It might be something where the Cardinals and the Brewers are playing around trying to be the last team standing if there are more than 2 teams that are talking to you about them.
Yeah, and you know, there's been a lot of speculation that the Astros are going to offer their closer. They're going to let it be known that Ryan Presley is available, and he's really good too. And I think he would be coveted. And there will also be some other high leverage relievers on the market. It's not necessarily closers by title, but guys that have done a good job in their careers in high leverage situations. And I was reading a piece, I think at The Athletic, where they were rating position groups, and they basically said that the closer high leverage reliever market is one of the best this year for free agency. So your point is absolutely correct.
I was thinking about this because I was born in 1982, so I'd be lying if I sat here and told you that I remember watching Bruce Sutter and Todd Worrell. Obviously, I know those guys and what they meant to the Cardinals, but I put together a list of Cardinals closers who have had at least one very good season from Sutter on. So Sutter and Worrell, then Lee Smith, Tom Hankey, Dennis Eckersley, Dave Veers, Jason Isringhausen, Ryan Franklin, Jason Mott, Edward Mejia, Trevor Rosenthal, Bud Norris, Alex Reyes. I think I got everybody in there. If I lost someone in there, feel free to tell me, Bernie. But when you think about that group and then think about Ryan Helsley, and now he is the single season saves leader for the Cardinals, if his time is done, who are we grouping him with? How do we view his time as a Cardinal?
Well, I think that Jason Isringhausen would be at the top of the list only because he is a Cardinals Hall of Famer. Well, he was outstanding too. Of course, he was an accomplished reliever and closer, but he's a Cardinals Hall of Famer, and I think that gives you special status. A guy that, and I don't have the info in front of me, but when I was sort of picking an all DeWitt era team, since he bought the team in 1996. I had Trevor Rosenthal really, really, really high on the list. Trevor Rosenthal actually gets overlooked. He was phenomenal there for quite a while. So I would put Helsley right there in that top three. And I would, then you got to go all the way back to like maybe Todd Worrell in the mid 80s. But maybe he didn't have the longevity that some of these other guys have had. So it's a really great question. The bottom line is the Cardinals have an excellent tradition of fantastic closers. I mean, so many of them, all-stars and people that have had, even just one phenomenal season. We've also seen what can happen, and maybe this ties back into the trade thing. I covered as a columnist, that 1989 Cardinals team that had a really good chance to win the Central, and Todd Worrell blew out his elbow late in the year. And, God rest his soul, and a wonderful guy and a wonderful pitcher, but the Cardinals had to turn to kind of a fading Dan Quisenberry to be their closer for the final month. And it wasn't the same, and they lost out to the Cubs. So if you're a contending team and you don't have that closer, man, you are really vulnerable. So I'm thinking that might be one reason. I think teams know a lot of history, and they know you got to have that guy.
As I watched the World Series this year, I thought to myself, both the Dodgers and Yankees. I mean, and it's not completely fair because you don't know what it would look like in the postseason. These relievers are just put through a meat grinder during the postseason. I am not a fan of the way managers manage bullpens in the postseason. But as I watched those games, I couldn't help but think to myself, each of these teams would absolutely love to have a Ryan Helsley, a Devin Williams, a Ryan Presley, any of these guys that are going to be available this offseason.
No, I agree. And it's interesting because I know it's become popular, and this is not directed at you because you're right, and I agree with you. But I've noticed it's become popular to sort of point out, well, look, I mean, the Yankees didn't spend much on a closer. Look at who their closer was. It was Luke Weaver. He was with, 5 teams, 6 teams. The Yankees didn't even see him as a closer. And then they finally gave him a chance because they didn't have any other options, and he did well. See, you don't have to spend big money on a closer. Man, I don't take an isolated example or two and act like that's the predominant logic. I don't. And the Dodgers, they didn't really have, Blake Trinan, I know, sort of picked up that job, but they didn't have an absolute designated closer in the postseason either. And they did just fine. So people say, see, you don't really need to spend that money on a closer. Come on, man. Don't go with the outlier examples. There's a lot of evidence that, tells us that, you need to have that guy. You just need to have that guy, not 100% of the time. Every now and then you can get by, but it's best to have that guy.
Just because we're kind of talking about it here for a moment,
Sure.
This is something that I don't think we've discussed on this show. Bernie, it bothered me when the Brewers declined the option on Devin Williams and basically sent him back to arbitration. I know this doesn't happen that often in Major League Baseball. So when you're negotiating a CBA, you try to negotiate issues that touch a high percentage of players. But the idea that, I don't think you should be able to have a club option during arbitration years. It seems, I don't want to use the word immoral, but I'm lacking for another word. It really bothered me that they're probably going to trade him. They declined the option just as a way to make him more valuable to other teams. Or 2 years ago when they signed him to this deal, it feels like to Devin that he's getting his arbitration years bought out. And I know the response is, well, the contract was the contract. He knew what he was signing at the moment, but it really, really bothered me when an option gets declined inside of an arbitration year.
No, I hear you. It's cold, man. It was a cold move. And Brewers fans would say in general, the idea of trading him is a cold move because the Brewers have owned this division. And I don't know. I think the Cubs will be better. I'm anticipating they're going to make some trades. They're going to dip into their prospect pool and make some trades. So I think the Cubs will be more viable to maybe steal the division from the Brewers in 2025. That's another conversation for another day. But if you're a Brewers fan, first of all, they traded Josh Hader out from under the team a few years ago to San Diego. And David Stearns, who made that trade, he's now the guy running the Mets. He later admitted, he said, it was really a bad move because it demoralized our clubhouse. I mean, everyone in the clubhouse thought they're giving up on us. They're not giving us our best shot. He said it had a massive effect on that team. So the Brewers have a history of being kind of cold-hearted in these things, and yet they still managed to stay ahead of the Cubs and the Cardinals. I mean, with the low payroll, it's the smallest market in the majors. But yeah, that's kind of the way they do things. They tend to be very cold-blooded, and they base everything on the bottom line. It works for them. And maybe they don't waste as much money as some teams. I don't know.
It's an organizational philosophy. They called me on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, to tell me they weren't giving me a job.
I know, right? Unreal. So
yeah. So that's
what would it be like if the Cardinals held on to Ryan Helsley next season and number one, and he gets hurt, and then he has no trade value, or number two, they just hold on to him and then let him go to free agency, or they flip him at the deadline or whatever. But they go into the season with him and have him most of the season. And yet if the Brewers would trade Devin Williams and still be much, much better than the Cardinals, I think, let me put it to you this way. I think if Chaim Bloom was running things now, there is no doubt in my mind what the Cardinals would do this offseason. They would make the best deal that they can to trade Ryan Helsley. I don't know what the thinking would be if you don't think you're going to be a contender. If you had told your own fan base, as John Mozeliak did, that, hey, we're probably going to take a step back in 2025, I think most people that are fair-minded and who try to understand what the Cardinals are doing, I think they're okay with that because they're working on a long overdue project. But I don't know what the point would be when the alternative, like in other words, Ryan Helsley in a lost cause, where the alternative would be to get a really nice package that is actually going to help enhance your future. It just doesn't seem logical to me. In fact, it's illogical, but we'll see how it plays out.
Alongside of Bernie Miklasz, I'm Matt Pauley. This is the Gashouse Gang, and Bernie, we're being brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling.
I always like to mention our friend Saliga Heating and Cooling. We've been clients for 15, 16 years, and they've been serving the St. Louis community since 1927, this independent American standard heating and air conditioning dealer, and I'm proud to talk about them. Dan Saliga is doing a great job. But there's something specifically I just wanted to mention. They have financing options available subject to credit approval. You can go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com for more details on that. So they'll make it easier for you to get done whatever you need done, especially if it's a larger project. SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Thank you.
Bernie, if the Cardinals are playing a game tomorrow and Ryan Helsley is not on the roster, but the other guys who have been around are, who's that ninth inning guy for you? Is it Jojo Romero? Is Ryan Fernandez ready to take another step forward? Is Matthew Liberator ready to take another step forward? If you have to win a one-run game in the ninth inning tomorrow with a Cardinals relief pitcher on the roster right now, not named Ryan Helsley, who are you handing the ball to?
With the anticipation, of a change in the closer position, I would start, because again, it fits into the theme of what 2025 is supposed to be. And the Cardinals have given us this theme. Look, we're going to play the kids, right? I'd go with Ryan Fernandez, and here's why. He had one of the very best sliders, just a wicked, wicked pitch as a rookie in 2024. And it's funny because I happened to look this up yesterday for something I was writing at Scoops Network. But with that slider last year, he allowed about a 180 batting average, and he had a swing and miss rate of like 44%, and the strikeout rate was just about 37%. When you have a pitch that is that nasty and it's really, really reliable, and you throw it a lot and they still can't do anything with it, that's closer stuff right there. And the thing about Jojo Romero, I looked this up again yesterday too. He struck out about 31% of batters faced in the first month of the season, right? After the first month of the season, the rest of the way, he struck out about 18%. There was something not right with him. And I can't assume that he bounced back really good in August, but it was really kind of a struggle for him just in terms of his velocity and his strikeout stuff. So I would not have a lot of faith right now in turning that over to him. I think Liberatore is a fascinating guy too, because I could see a situation, and I want to ask you what you think about this, where you would sort of go with the Fernandez Liberatore combination in the ninth inning, depending on what the other team's sending up that inning, or who's on the bench that they might pinch hit that inning. So but I think Fernandez deserves the first call. I really do, because nasty pitch, and that's what you need when you're a closer.
I kind of want to see it happen organically, and this is what happens all the time when you don't have a clear-cut closer. You start the season closer by committee, and then you see who can handle it. Getting that 27th out, that is a different out than the other 26 of them. So which of these guys have the entire makeup, not just the physical makeup, but the emotional, mental makeup to handle that final out as well? So starting the season with a tandem of Fernandez and Liberatore there in the ninth inning, depending on what you're going to face off against in that inning, I've got no problem with that. But I would also be very hopeful that as the season moves along, one of those guys would emerge as your ninth inning guy.
And that's the thing. I don't know what other candidates are there, and I'm probably missing someone. And shame on me if I am, but I'm thinking of about another right-handed reliever that the profiles that's got like high leverage, really nasty stuff, and I'm drawing a blank. They've had some good setup guys, don't get me wrong, but someone who could graduate to the closer role. And I do think, there is a point to be made that you need a lot of good relievers. That was their key last year. Helsley was the hammer, but the Cardinals were really, really good in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. They had, I think my stat on that, the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings last year, I think they had like the 4th best ERA in baseball. It might have been 5th, but those were those innings, and it wasn't just Ryan Helsley. So, but Kittredge won't be in the mix. I'm not sure about Romero, whether his stuff is still there. So, one thing they can do too is if with some advice from Chaim Bloom, he's the one who told them to draft Fernandez in the Rule 5. I would like to see them take a flyer on some relievers that have a lot of potential, that they've identified as having like one outstanding pitch, and then they can fill in the rest. This would be a good time for them to take chances on guys from the outside that won't cost them a lot of money.
And they've done that a little bit here in the offseason. They got, hold on. Let me
Gomez?
Yeah, they got Michael Gomez is one guy that they brought in, and they also went and got the former Marlin. So the names are escaping me here.
I know. I can never remember names.
Munoz.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Rodri Munoz is one of them, and then Gomez the other. Those are the two guys that I was trying to think through. Though to me, those guys profile as Chaim Bloom specials.
Yeah, absolutely. And he really helped them a lot. I think he was really responsible for giving manager Ale Marmol a chance to build a good bullpen, and Marmol did a really good job of handling the bullpen. And I know that those who are more negative will point out a couple of the Chaim Bloom type moves that didn't pan out, but I'm not sure how to say this without sounding like a snotty guy, but I don't think anyone bats 1,000 on these, especially when you're taking a flyer on someone that you think's got a chance to be good. You're not going to bat 1,000, but he came through. Kittredge for sure, and Fernandez, which was a huge get, because he can be a Cardinal now for 5 more seasons. So what? So I'm supposed to like savage Chaim Bloom because Nick Robertson didn't work out? I mean, are people bananas? Come on now. You got to have some perspective on this.
And Robertson got picked up the moment he was done with the Cardinals. So there were other teams that were interested. We just saw a comment. If you're watching on any of the social media channels, feel free to comment in. Verla said Chaim would trade Helsley. Yeah, and he would get that. It is going to be fun, I think, Bernie, to watch the level of talent and the level of creativity in some of the untapped talent that's brought into this organization.
Right. I'm like you, man. I think we all agree. I think every Cardinals fan would agree. It's not like we, look at Helsley as a disposable item, or we don't care, or we're cold-hearted about it, or we don't appreciate everything he's done. He's a great Cardinal, and he's the number one reason they won 83 games. And 83 games is not the end all be all. It's not the goal, but without him, I'm confident saying without him, they have another losing season. I don't think there's any question about it. 44-1, the Cardinals were in 2024 when they had a lead after 8 innings. That's all about Ryan Helsley, and if that would have been average-ish or good, just like decent, let's just say instead of 44-1, it would have been like 38-7 or 39-6. They're a losing team,
So League of Heating and Cooling is presenting the Gashouse Gang alongside of Bernie Miklasz. I'm Matt Pauley. Last night, the Blues find a way to lose once again, Bernie. They've got a lead going into the third period. They even have the tying goal disallowed before eventually giving up the equalizer. Then a penalty is called with like 40 seconds to go. The Blues just allow the Sabres to skate around with the puck for 40 seconds to be able to get a 4-on-3 in overtime. And then lo and behold, the Sabres score a goal at about 90 seconds into the power play in overtime. So if the Blues maybe would have been more aggressive trying to, start the power play in regulation, maybe that doesn't happen. They're just finding ways to lose right now.
You were telling me that when we were discussing some of the things we wanted to get into today on the Gashouse Gang, you were telling me that maybe I'm misreading you. I sensed that perhaps you were a little perturbed by something that Coach Drew Bannister said after the game. I'm all ears. You didn't tell me what it was. So I'm like our audience. I'm waiting to hear what that was.
All right. So this is the quote I read from Matthew DeFranks of the Post-Dispatch from his Twitter account. And there's 2 parts of this quote that bother me. This is from Drew Bannister. When he was
I like it, Matt. I like it. Go ahead.
When he was asked about Jordan Kyrou not playing the final 4 minutes and 38 seconds of regulation, he says, "I'm putting players out there right now that," he trails off, "we want to make sure that we get at least a point. It has nothing to do with Jordan. I thought Jordan played great. I thought the team played great." So I take 2 issues here. First off, I take issue with the fact that he can't just I have no issue with him not playing Kyrou for the final 4:38. That's a coaching decision. That's what you do. If you feel like that gives you the best chance, I'm fine. I have no problem with the decision. I literally have problems with what he says. The fact that he can't just say Kyrou wasn't, we didn't trust Kyrou in that situation. He's scared of Jordan Kyrou, that he can't just call the guy out when he's asked the question why. And then you're playing the freaking Buffalo Sabres and you say that we want to make sure we at least get a point. You're playing for a tie against the Buffalo Sabres, and you say that out loud. It just really bothers me.
Well,
Bernie.
yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm with you. You can't have it both ways. I mean, you benched Kyrou for a reason. You did not trust him, as you alluded to. You obviously were not happy with the way he was playing, or you never would have iced him, so to speak. But you can't come out and say, "Oh, he played well," but you can't have it both ways. Man, if you're going to be the head coach, you got to be a stronger leader than that. And believe me, that's the kind of thing that players in the locker room will pick up on, and the whole Jordan Kyrou experience is fatiguing. Mm-hmm. It really is. And how many more coaches are we going to hear this from? And I'm not sure what's going on upstairs between the ears with Jordan Kyrou, because his talent is undeniable. I don't understand him. I don't know whether it's a situation of immaturity. Okay, if we say that, well, how many years will it take him to mature? What he's got to be a 10-year veteran before he reaches that maturity level and that level of hockey intellect, right? He is a baffling guy, and I hope that this investment works out, because I have some doubts, and I am no reservations about saying that, because it's the same thing over and over again. I'm sorry, man.
No, absolutely, 100%. And again, if you're not comfortable with him on the ice at the end of the game, okay, like that's a topic for another day. We got on the Blues pretty hard yesterday about them laying back in that third period against Boston. Right. Well, post-game press conference yesterday, you got your coach saying that basically they were just trying to play for overtime and just trying to play for a point. So I actually have a harder time being angry at the players about laying back when a day later you've got a coach admitting that that's essentially what they were doing.
That's such a great point. I agree 100%. Again, I'm a little confused about exactly what the coach wants. like, you're frustrated by your team because they laid back in the third period, even though you as the coach can call a timeout and maybe get them to change their attitude about that. He didn't do it. He didn't just say, no, listen, we're gonna be in trouble here because we're being too passive. We're sitting back. So he didn't do anything then, but yet he's proactively taking the stance at Buffalo that they're going to play it safe, just hoping to get 1 point. Why don't you play to win?
Yeah.
I mean, why don't you play to win? I didn't like the fact that Bannister said after the game, "Oh, the boys played very well. Oh, they played very well." What is this? Is this junior? Is this Pee Wee hockey? Right? Is this like the 9-year-olds out there? You play to win. That's why they're there. And when you have games that are winnable, and that one obviously was winnable, and you don't win it, I'm sorry. I'm not handing out the juice boxes and taking the kids to get frozen custard. Sorry. Doesn't work that way in the NHL.
I do try to be incredibly fair in everything that I talk about, and I've been thinking about this lately. This man, God bless him, he's never been in this before. He's been a minor league coach. In no time did he ever have quotes that he said being dissected word by word like I'm doing right now. So maybe maybe it'll just take some time for the savviness of being an NHL coach to come along with it. But there's, whether it was the line change thing the other day after after the really bad loss, and then this, it just feels like he's not saying the right things. And maybe that's just something he needs to learn.
I would ask our audience this, and I know that we have some watching us live, and we do welcome them to comment. In fact, we really want them to comment and be part of this. But I'll ask you. I'm going to put you on the spot, Matt Pauley. And this is not a fair question, I admit it, but it's on my mind, so I'm going to put it out there. When you look at Coach Zim, you look at the coach. I'm sorry. Does he inspire confidence in you?
No, I think he's a perfectly fine hockey coach. Like, I'm not trying to, but is he this difference making big personality, impactful head coach in the National Hockey League? No, like there's a ton of Drew Bannisters out there. You can go to probably just about every professional hockey rink in America and find a Drew Bannister. And for a lot of hockey teams, that's probably good enough because you got a group that just needs to go out there and get coached the way you're supposed to be coached. It feels like this team needs a little bit more.
I agree. Maybe the best thing to do is to just accept this season for what it is.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be as good as we'd hope. Not that anyone expected this gangbuster season, but Thomas is going to get back a little sooner than expected. And before long, Broberg will be back. And, maybe that's when we start to reevaluate them, when they have a better chance of having success. But again, I also don't want to put too much on that because other teams get hit hard by injuries as well.
Yeah, it'll be nice to get those guys back, but they could have already done more without them in the lineup. But it was a very good sign when, Robert Thomas is on this trip, Bernie, and he's been skating a little bit. This was supposed to be a 6 to 8 week injury. Maybe it'll still be that way, but to see him back on the ice, and also he told Bannister, I want to be with the team. I want to be around the guys. I think if we're going to be critical about the character of the team, I think it says a lot about Thomas that he's not checking out and he's not, sitting in St. Louis while the team's on the road, just getting his skating in on his own during the day. He wants to be involved and find a way to help. So that is commendable for whatever that's worth.
No, see, Thomas is an example of someone who really has matured. And I don't know why Kyrou is, because they basically, came up at the same time. Thomas is slightly ahead of him, of course, but they're both in the same youth group and everything else. And it clicked in with Thomas pretty soon. Mm-hmm. We're still waiting for it to click in with Kyrou, and that's the difference between them.
You are listening, you are watching, depending on how you are taking it in, the Gashouse Gang, and we are brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Bernie, tell us a little bit about Saliga. I know you are very connected with them. They do a great job.
Yeah, we've been calling Saliga Heating and Cooling, for 15 or 16 years, and we really have come to rely and to trust 100% this independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer because their honesty stands out, their professionalism, their knowledge, they're classy when they're in the home. And they're also, they keep their word. If they say they're going to be at your house between Friday, between 11 and 1, they'll be there between 11 and 1. I mean, they know that it's important to take care of your problems if you're having any. And they also have that new American Standard equipment if you need some of that. But I want you to go look at SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. They've been same family's owned it since 1927. Go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Take a look at the Priority Club, and that's a maintenance program. We're members of that. It's definitely worth it. The preventative maintenance, things like that. There's also financing options available, subject to credit approval. So there's a lot of ways and a lot of extra services that go beyond heating and cooling. And that's why I'm going to, again, redirect you to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. You'll see all the services that are available to you, but you can count on them. I give you my word on that.
It is a really good football weekend. I want to go through both the college football slate and the NFL slate before we get out of here for the day. We'll start with college football, Bernie, as Missouri matches up against a South Carolina team. It's interesting. They're right next to each other in the college football playoff rankings, but South Carolina is a 2-touchdown favorite. And you know what? I think that's right. I have no problem with that point spread.
South Carolina should have won at Alabama and lost by 2. And then their last 3 games against Oklahoma and Texas A&M and Vanderbilt, they won those 3 games by just under an average of 25 points per game. They have a pass rush that has been incredibly difficult for teams to block. That's bad news for Mizzou. Their multiple quarterback, who is an incredible runner, and he's developing really strong in the passing game. He's very, very difficult to stop. He's given them an X-factor weapon that they haven't had in a long time. And it's just not a good matchup for Mizzou, especially when we pause to remember their 2 road games to Alabama and Texas A&M outscored 75-10. And I think South Carolina, I don't think they have sneaked up on us, but you look at them, they're actually 15th in the FPI. And the Sagarin ratings have him like 10th or 11th. I mean, the way they're playing now, they're playing about as well as most teams in the country, like the very best teams in the country. I know they have 3 losses, but they're not that 3-loss team anymore. They have taken their game to a whole new level.
Illinois is going to match up against Michigan State. Bernie, Illinois' last game against Minnesota, I thought that was the first winnable game this year that they lost. They'd been perfect in the games that I thought they had a chance to win until last weekend. They still have a chance to put together a really good season, nice season, good step forward for Brett Bielema. That they aren't playing a really tough schedule, but it feels like this is another very winnable game for this team, and you would like them not to have back-to-back losses against teams that you feel like they can beat.
Yeah, to your point, you got to get this one if you're Illinois, especially after not taking care of business against Minnesota. I think you have to get this one. I think it'd be very, very disappointing if they didn't, because Michigan State's certainly beatable.
The biggest game in the nation comes in the SEC. I'm excited for this one. Tennessee and Georgia. I know Georgia's ranked number 12 in the college football playoff rankings. They are, as far as I'm concerned, they're a top 5, top 6 team in the nation. I think Tennessee is really good. If Georgia loses the game, they may not have a path to the college football playoff, which would be disappointing. This is a really, really good game.
Georgia has been a phenomenal, dominant team at home for a long time under Kirby Smart. So if you look at that, you say, well, certainly Georgia in a desperation mode, they need this game. They absolutely need this game. And they're so formidable at home traditionally. They'll get this one. But I pause. I pause before rubber stamping that opinion, because even though Tennessee's young quarterback, number 1, he hadn't quite lived up to the hype, and he may not. I'm assuming he'll play, but he might not be 100% or whatever. He could be on a short leash type thing. Tennessee's defense is outstanding, and one of the things they do especially well is stop the run. Georgia has not been an effective running team, and they won't have Ep.10 tomorrow. He's out. And so if you're getting in a lot of third down situations, I don't care whether it's at home, neutral field, or on the road, Carson Beck has been very shaky, and he's forced a lot of stuff on third down. He has had a surprisingly bad season. So if I had to bet, I would probably go with Georgia, but I don't have the trust in them that I would have had earlier in the season because of Carson Beck and the lack of a running game. But if Georgia's going to be able to turn on that physical dominance, now's the time, or they're going to be in big trouble.
In the NFL on Sunday, there's two games that really stand out to me: Ravens and Steelers, and then the Bills and the Chiefs. And Bertie, it's fun. Obviously here in St. Louis, there's a lot of Chiefs fans. We run the Chiefs on KMOX. This Chiefs-Bills rivalry has been interesting. You've got two of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. Bills tend to have a little bit of success against Kansas City in the regular season. Chiefs have dominated the postseason against Buffalo. And this rivalry is turning into really the best rivalry of this era of the NFL.
I think it is. And I also think that it's the best quarterback rivalry since Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. And there's actually some similarities because I think these are two, Allen and Mahomes, I think they're two Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Tom Brady had the edge over Peyton Manning in regular season matchups, but Manning won 3 and lost 2 against Brady in the postseason. So it's kind of a similar thing. This is a great matchup. It's the regular season game of the year so far because let me look at my notes here. This is only the 5th time since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger that a pair of teams with 8 or more wins will meet prior to week 11. So this doesn't happen very often. And if the Chiefs can win this game, and they've had a lot of close calls, they're not nearly at their best form. If they win this one, they're 10-0, and then their next 2 games are against Carolina and Vegas. So they could be sitting there at 12-0 going into December. The Bills are banged up. The Chiefs are too. The Chiefs also won't have Harrison Butker. Their kicker's on IR. And if it's a close game, and the Chiefs and the Bills play a lot of close games, that could be a huge factor. So I like the Bills to win this one. I think it's Josh Allen's turn. And as you pointed out, the Bills are 3-1 in the regular season against Mahomes. So it would not be out of character for the Chiefs to lose there because the Chiefs they're doing this high wire escape act a lot. And I think it's, this Mission Impossible, these scenes out of football Mission Impossible, at one of these times they're going to fall, and this shapes up as one of those games.
The only place where I would push back on comparing this quarterback rivalry to Brady Manning had some Super Bowl wins, and obviously Brady did too. Manning got a second late in his career.
Well, sure.
But this rivalry would certainly be helped out by Josh Allen and the Bills winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I don't know how many years Manning was drafted in, I think, 98. He didn't win his first Super Bowl until 2006. So just like Josh Allen has been in position but hasn't gotten it done, he's kind of on that Manning track just in terms of first Super Bowl win, But the Chiefs are quite an obstacle. Baltimore's an obstacle. The AFC's got some really good teams. Even teams that are having disappointing seasons are still, like Cincinnati, they're still really talented.
Bernie, I know you go a lot deeper on this subject on one of your recent videos on your YouTube channel. We encourage everybody to subscribe to The Bernie Show. It's a YouTube at the @ at The Bernie Show. And every day you're doing 1 or 2 videos, 35, 40 minutes, really diving in deep on a single topic, the way you are so when it comes to going deep on stuff, there's very few people who are better at it than you. And it's a great opportunity for Cardinal or for just sports fans in St. Louis to listen in.
I did a shorter one today. I went about, I think, 18 minutes previewing the Chiefs and the Bills because I think it'll have massive radio ratings and TV ratings in St. Louis, as always. And I think it's the game of the year so far, so I'm looking forward to it. I think later today, I'm going to do a second video, little promo here, talking about J.J. Wetherholt, the 7th overall pick in the 2024 draft, wondering how soon it will be before we see him in St. Louis, because I think the young lad is the real deal. People have been, independent evaluators are just blown away by his talent.
I think he's on the Mason Wynn timeline. I think we see him towards the end of this upcoming season.
That would be good. Yeah, I could go with that. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that they'll be cautious. I don't think they're going to want to hurry him up. And a lot of that has to do with the business practicalities as well.
Well, Bernie, have a wonderful weekend. Always enjoy our conversations, and we'll talk again next week.
Matt, you take care. Have a great weekend. And Monday, the whole gang will be together here on Gashouse Gang, all 4 of us, you, myself, Ackerman, Wheeler. Looking forward to that as well.
That's Bernie Miklasz. I'm Matt Pauley. Everybody else have a wonderful weekend. This has been the Gas House Gang presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling.